Baltimore County Planning Board. We're going to call this meeting to order. I'm Nancy Hafford, the chair of the board. I'm going to call roll, and when I mention your name, would you please say aye? Mr. Schweitzer.
Aye.
Ms. Panera. Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman. I thought I saw you on there. Mr. Halipka.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Wolfson. Ms. Wolfson. Mr. McGinnis. I thought I saw him on there too. Mr. McGinnis?
I'm here, but
Oh, there you go. I got you now. Mr. Heckman.
aye.
Mr. Heinel. Mr. Perlow. Mr. Warren.
Here.
Mr. Caligari.
I'm here.
Mr. Foltus.
Is that Fotis?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, aye.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Madam Chair, I am here, Hartman.
Okay, thank you.
Bit late, sorry.
That's okay, Paul.
Computer was acting up.
I know, I thought I saw you on there and then you disappeared.
I disappeared 3 times.
It's like
Sorry for my
Disneyland. Like Disneyland. Okay, Mr. Davis, is there any changes to the published agenda?
No, Madam Chair, there are no changes to the agenda as published.
Well, Mr. Davis, I don't know if you all know that this is his last evening with us. He's going to be leaving us, and you've been a real pleasure to work with. We're going to miss you a lot, but it's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. So all the best to you in your future. We're very, very grateful for your service.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, in the February 11th email, you received draft minutes of the February 4th, 2021 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions or changes? If not, yes? If not, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion.
All right, all in favor, a second?
Oh, second.
Motion- All right, the motion carries. We are honored to have Mr. Charlie Perham and Mr. Matt Schwab of Metrics Design Group to join us today to discuss the economic consulting service efforts for the Master Plan 2030. Now let us welcome Mr. Perham and Mr. Schwab.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Charlie Perry. I am calling from the road between Texarkana and Dallas, Texas. I want to confirm that you all can hear me okay. Okay, great. And I understand that someone from the county is going to be sharing the few slides that we have. Great. Thank you, Chris. And so you can go ahead to the next slide there, and we'll go to presentation mode. Great. So this confirms the two faces you see in your video chat, or the two faces on the slide there. Many of you have met our Chief Executive Officer, Sal Najumian. We are super excited to be supporting the county. We've done a lot of work in that area, but not this specific work for the county. And so we're very excited. My name is Charlie Parham, Director of Government Consulting Services for Matrix. I spent a career in the Air Force. I retired in 2015, and I joined Matrix then as the Deputy for Government Consulting Services when our CEO was running this group for the firm. And when he fleeted up to be the CEO a couple years ago, I slid into his role as the director. My entire time, and a couple years prior to me, Matt Schwab joined Matrix as the lead economic analyst for the firm, and he's been part of our group the entire time. He is Haas Center educated, University of West Florida, and has been doing a wonderful job to support all of our clients around the country. Go ahead to the next chart. He'll be the lead on this project for us. Go ahead to the next chart. So just a little bit more about who the county is has asked to help them with this effort. Matrix Design Group, we are a nationwide firm. We are a little over 20 years old. We were founded in 1999 out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We have 11 offices around the country. Our largest offices are in Colorado Springs, Denver, and Phoenix, but we do have a number of offices elsewhere. Specifically important to this, we have an office there in Crofton, Maryland. And so we, as you can see by the little dimple chart here, we do work across the nation, and specifically in economics and planning and in engineering. And we also have a wholly owned subsidiary that is an environmental firm, Matrix Environmental Services. And so we are happy to bring our breadth of experience to the county and help you all set up your 2030 mass strategic plan. We do a lot of work in this arena, and so we're excited to get started. I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to my colleague, Matt, so that he can talk through the details.
Sure, thanks, Charlie. Chris, go ahead to the next slide, please. So as Charlie alluded to, so our group was founded 20 years ago, and at our core, we are a real estate analysis, community planning, civil engineering, and environmental firm. So we are a fully integrated firm that not only does the economics and the forecasting of commercial development, we also do the engineering behind that. So when we approach our, whether it's a market study or an economic analysis or a community master plan, we approach it as a developer would also approach this. So we understand not just what demand is in the future, but we understand what developers are thinking and how they think and what they need to bring successful developments to the market. Next slide, please, Chris. So why are we here? So the county has brought us aboard early last month in support of the county's Master Plan 2030 planning efforts. Our goal here is, or our task will be over the next 6 months to do a lot of the economic and market research for about 5 or 6 planning areas within Baltimore County. And our ultimate task is to project the commercial demand for retail, office, light industrial, and flex uses. Now, we all know we're in a different economic environment than was just a year ago or a little longer than a year ago, right? We're dealing with COVID-19 shutdowns. There's changing requirements of property end users. The labor uses are changing. Automation is occurring in the manufacturing field. There's the work from home is a trend that will likely continue for a few years, if not permanently. And then, of course, with respect to retail, e-commerce is increasing. And what is that going to look like over 10 years? So see, these are some of the things that we'll take into consideration when we plan out or when we provide our 10-year forecasts for commercial development. And we do that in a lot of different, in a couple different ways. We take both a qualitative and a quantitative approach. So we actually look at hard numbers to give the county estimates of square footage requirements by each of these land uses that we discussed, but we'll also take a qualitative approach where we will interview local property owners, developers, city or county staff, and just talk about the stakeholders that really play in the retail, office, light industrial, flex arenas to get their opinion as to what's going on currently in the county and with their thoughts of where that's headed, each one of these uses are headed. The great thing about Matrix is that we also have a national presence. So we'll build in, we'll bring to the county a national and regional perspective as well, and identify what's going on at those levels to take away some best practices and provide some inferences for our forecasts moving forward. Next slide, please, Chris. So our project is slated to last 6 months. We have a 6-month performance period. We've started in early February, and you can see here in this performance schedule, we've got a couple different lists here. And this is kind of a truncated schedule. Within each one of these activity areas is a series of other tasks that we'll be undertaking. But you can see here, we've already started. We've already had an internal kickoff call with the county. We've already begun to collect data and to speak with county staff. Over the next couple of months, we'll begin to analyze data, conduct literature reviews of best practices and current trends. We will then move into interviews with local stakeholders. We'll then update our commercial forecasts, draft some recommendations and provide those to the county, and then let the county review those recommendations, provide input. We'll then adjust those recommendations per county guidance, and then we will have a final product and final presentation that we will present to this board in July of this year. So we've already started, like I said, and we've already made a pretty good amount of progress just in the month that we've been working this. Chris, next slide, please. So what we wanted to do today is just give a quick presentation of who we are and what we're doing for the county, a quick timeline of when we will have this project complete and what it entails. And here we have Charlie and mine contact information. If the board has any questions or comments, you can please feel free to reach out to us directly or through Amy with the county, and we're happy to answer any questions as we move along. And with that, I would hand it over to the board for any questions.
I have a question. You're
Yes,
not
sir.
going to be looking at residential demand for new residences or green space, transportation, any of those? This just looks like commercial and retail?
Yeah, it's mostly, it is all commercial. However, as I think you're alluding to, residential and transportation networks all have significant influences on commercial demand. So while we won't be projecting residential demand over the 10-year horizon, we will be considering what residential demand looks like. Where are current, particularly multifamily and large clusters of single family housing. As I'm sure you know, retail chases rooftops, unless you're in a destination or a tourism based area, which we will also consider. We're working very closely with Todd and Economic Development and Workforce Group to kind of understand what is the current demand for these uses from a commercial perspective. So we will not necessarily be forecasting residential or transportation needs, but those will absolutely be part of our analysis. We'll certainly consider those.
Matt, do you cover just briefly the GIS capabilities that we'll bring to bear on this, and
Sure.
actually how the report may be structured with the story map?
Yeah, that's a good point. So right now we're working with the county on deciding what our final product is going to look like, the core contents of which will remain the same. We'll talk about the changing nature of retail and the changing nature of office space usage and light industrial uses. But our final product, we have a couple different options here, right? So one, we can do a traditional report, X number of page report where we have the different forecasts broken out and it's more static. But we also, Matrix has a very sophisticated GIS group, and I know so too does the county. And we are considering developing what's called a story map, where we can present our findings on the web, taking advantage of GIS technology where we would include all of our forecasts broken out at those regional levels like we discussed. It'll be easy to filter, and like I said, it'll be in a story, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with the story map, but a story map is essentially, it takes a written report and it puts it on the web, but it does so in a manner that's easy to read, easy to search, easy to filter by certain uses. If you're really only interested in retail, we can set this up to where you just, you click over a certain chapter that focuses on retail. If you're only interested in one type of region in the county, you can select that region. And it's more interactive. The user will be able to hover over regions to see detailed analyses. And it's really just kind of taking that analysis into the 21st century. Reports are great and they got a lot of great information into it. Sometimes they just don't get as used, or they're not accessed by stakeholders as easily. And we think this is a neat way to present the study's findings. And it's something that's easily incorporated into the county's GIS platforms already, as we both use the same technologies. Thanks, Charlie.
Matt, when you're doing the analysis, will you be looking at just county data, or will you be also taking into account information from the whole region?
Yeah, so fantastic question. So we will be taking a regional approach to this because economics, as you know, does not follow political boundaries. So we will take a regional approach. Our forecast will only be for the county. But to understand what those forecasts really look like, we will absolutely be looking outside of the county area. We'll look at the MSA area. We'll look at where are the growth patterns really occurring. Is that taking away from the county? Are there things that we can leverage with other amenities that may be in proximity to the county borders? We also have an understanding of the rural-urban demarcation line. So we understand that there's some constraints moving north into the county. So yes, sir, we will absolutely be looking at taking a regional approach to demand.
Matt, are you going, I know you're not looking at retail at all, but.
No, we are looking at retail.
Or not residential, I'm sorry, like housing.
Okay, yeah. Correct.
Are you going to look, like, we had a plan that was put forth recently to revitalize shopping centers with mixed use residential, right, and we call it a CCC overlay. Are you going to look at that and as a demand for that, or demand for affordable housing and in that conversion? So
we're in the process of collecting all of these reports right now. We've already looked at some of the economic reports by Todd and his group, and now we're working with the county to figure out what are the current plans that are in place. What have the past analyses been? And we're going to incorporate all of that into our research. So we try to take a comprehensive approach to this. We don't, with the shopping malls kind of changing the nature of their use, that will absolutely impact how retail and residential is brought to market in the future over the coming years. And so those will absolutely be considerations that we take into account. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll continue with our agenda.
I'm sorry, Nancy. Matt, you talked about 5 corridors. Were they literal corridors? Does it include Liberty Road?
So we will include the entire county up to the demarcation line. And what we haven't finalized these corridors yet. We're still working with the county on figuring out what this will look like. But they will cover everything south of the demarcation line. And the way that these are kind of, go ahead, please.
The Erdl is not a horizontal line.
I understood.
The Erdl is a circle. So it surrounds the county. So be inclusive about the Erdl, please.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you haven't identified the corridors yet. What are grocery stores going to play? We have a vast difference in where grocery stores are placed throughout the county and which grocery stores they are and who they are serving. And how are opportunity zones going to figure in your analysis?
Yeah, great question. So so we've already identified where all of the opportunity zones reside within the county. Now, opportunity zones are are very interesting, and they've had mixed success across the country over the last couple of years. And so we will certainly be looking at the demographics within those opportunity zones, and talking with the county and other developers that may be interested in those areas, to seeing what has come on board lately. We're going to leverage the CoStar real estate database, the commercial real estate database, where it actually plots every single retail, office, commercial development in the county. And we will look at patterns and how they've developed over time. And as I'm sure that you are well aware of, it's really kind of like a finger. It's like a hand, right? It's like a hub and spoke where you see the development occur, emanating out of the Baltimore City core. So opportunity zones will absolutely be considered, but as you know, demographics, income, consumer patterns is what drives retail. But there absolutely could be opportunities within those zones. So we'll certainly focus on those. Does that answer your question?
It's a start. Thanks.
And we are also starting with just the program too. So we've got a lot of work to do over the next really 5 months now. So I'm sorry?
Who's making a comment? Is it who? Bob, are you trying to say something? Okay. Kathy, you got to remember they're just starting. They haven't gotten the whole picture. Okay, is that Bob still trying to talk?
Yeah.
Mr. Schweitzer, we're having a problem with your connection. If you could type your comment in the chat. Yeah, it's just a low connectivity with your signal. Can you type your comment in the chat box, and we'll try to get Matt to answer.
And Bob, I'm also happy to take some emails and calls from you too. If you want to follow up with a call, happy to take that.
Chris, can we get Mr. Schweitzer his contact information? We can do that, Bob,
Sure.
if we can't get it.
Yeah, feel free to call me on my cell phone anytime.
I wouldn't say that.
I think it was on the slide. If you could share the slide presentation with us, I think it was on the slide.
There we go.
Can you forward that to all of us?
Nancy,
Yes,
Nancy, we'll make sure that this information is provided to the whole board.
Thank you so much, Steve.
And also, as you pointed out, they are at the very front end of the work. And the intent is, of course, to keep the planning board informed as this develops.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and for the planning board, we'll be submitting monthly reports, kind of activity reports as to what we've been doing each of the preceding months. So that's a way to be able to track what we've done too. And we'll be in constant communication with the county as we move forward.
Okay, thank you both so very much. We're going to move on now to our next item this evening. It's a vote on the Water and Sewer Emergency Amendment Cycle 2020 EM-1 petition, which was introduced to the board on January 21st, 2021. A public hearing was then concluded on February 4th, 2021. Staff from the Department of Public Works were here to answer further questions that the board might have before we take a vote. Would Mrs. McKenna Straley from the Department of Public Works like to add anything this evening before we take a vote?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
Board members, do you have any questions for her?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah, it's Bob Schweitzer. I was contacted by a resident in the Bowers Farm Road area, and there were two addresses which were not included in terms of the sewer hookups, and the question from that individual was to why they weren't included. It was, you may not be able to handle this now, but 2745 and 2801 Bowers Farm Road were not included in the sewer hookup. And whatever research it takes, I just need to maybe get some kind of an answer back on that.
Sure, I can take a look at the map and see if maybe they were just outside of the boundaries of that initial sanitary survey. That could be the main reason.
Okay.
Because it was a pretty concentrated area that we were looking at with some severe sewer septic issues.
Yeah, it was, just to repeat, it was 2745 and 2801 Bowers Farm Road. So
Okay.
it was just some curiosity as to why they weren't included, but okay.
Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer. Any other questions? If there are not any other questions, I will now entertain a motion to approve the Water and Sewer Emergency Amendment Cycle 2020 EM-1 petitions. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Be it moved.
Second.
He's got to make a moment. Go ahead.
Be it moved that the Baltimore County approves the water supply and emergency event cycle 20 EM1 petition dated 2021 and recommends it be forwarded to the County Council for appropriate action.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item on our agenda is the basic service maps that were introduced to the board January 21st, 2021 at a public hearing that was conducted on February 4th, 2021. Staff from the Department of Public Works were here to answer any questions that the board might have before we take a vote. Mr. Hirschlow from the Department of Public Works, is there anything you'd like to add?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. No, I have nothing more to add at this point.
Do any of the board members have any questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Be it moved that the planning board by the County Council of the 2021 basic services map for public water, public sewerage, and transportation per the memoranda as submitted by the Director of the Department of Public Works at the January 21st, 2021 planning.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item, yes? Our next item this evening on the board's final recommendation and vote regarding the fiscal year 2022 capital budget and capital program for fiscal year 2023 through 2027. I will now hand over to our wonderful Vice Chairman, Scott Halipka, who's done a great job chairing the CIP committee. Mr. Halipka, but before I turn it over, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself because there's a lot of background noise. Thank you all. Mr. Halipka.
Right, thank you. So I have to go over to enter into the rest of the programs review that we've done. First, the Planning Board Capital Improvement Budget and Program process for fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2027 began on October 2020 with the citizen input meeting held before the Planning Board. The board heard from citizens verbally and in writing who expressed their concerns relating to capital improvement opportunities. County Executive John Ashesky made a presentation to the Planning Board on January 21st, 2021. In his remarks, Mr. Ashesky noted that the success of the previous budget process allowed for the closing of an $81 million deficit, the funding of education at a record level, passing of an unprecedented ethics package, the hiring of the county's first inspector general, and the publishing of an online open budget and checkbook platform. Nearly $400 million in bond referendums for citizens to help. The focus of the bond money will continue to be focused toward education, including $240 million in shovel-ready school construction. The county executive emphasized of the multi-year improvement plan for all schools and its recommendations in order to develop a capital program that maximizes state funding and identifies priorities based on enrollment projection, capacity, and adequacy. The Planning Board Committee on the Capital Budget and Program held work sessions on January 21st, January 6th, January 28th, and February 4th, 2021, during which representatives from the presented their capital budget requests. The Department of Planning presented the staff CIP recommendations to the committee on February 23rd, 2021. After the committee accepted the staff recommendations for the fiscal year 2022 capital budget and 5-year program and suggested recommendations to be included in the board's cover letter to the Director of the Office of Budget and Finance. I would therefore like to make the motion that the Baltimore County Planning Board approve the fiscal year 2022 capital budget and capital program fiscal year 2023 and 2027 as recommended by the Committee on Capital Budget and Program for transmittal to the Director of the Office of Budget and Finance. Questions? Do we have a second?
Does anyone have a second?
Is there an opportunity to go over any of the just possible concerns or issues here? Or are we going straight to a vote?
No, absolutely. There's time to go over it.
Okay.
Caligari?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, as I raised in the subcommittee issue, my concern with the capital improvement plan as recommended by the department and as amended at the capital improvement subcommittee hearing remains that this plan does not call for new funding for Towson or Delaney High School, both of which are recommended by the Baltimore County Board of Education. My concern, quite frankly, is that we have the oldest school in the county in Towson, which hasn't been renovated in 22 years and is going to be close to 200% over capacity in 5 years. And Delaney, which is falling apart, the students can't drink the water there, the ceilings are collapsing. We've had advocacy for years from that community for the need for a new school. And that we have now $2.2 billion that the state has approved for new school construction funding through the Build to Learn Act. That funding's not going to be around forever. It's not going to be around, potentially a year from now, could be all allocated away. My concern is that by embarking on a study, which I understand the merits of, is that it's going to lead to a situation where we're kicking the can down the road, so to speak. Towson High School has, again, like I said, not received adequate investment over the years. Other regions of Baltimore County have. They've deserved it. They've needed it. But now Towson and Delaney need it as well. The concern is that by pushing that off towards a study and then potentially doing a renovation, which will not address the overcrowding concerns adequately, that we're going to be essentially assuming and creating a situation where Delaney and Towson are not going to get new schools. Again, the failure to act now, I don't think does service to the students, the teachers, and the faculty at those schools, especially after the Baltimore County Board of Education voted by an overwhelming 7-2 margin to put funding back into the recommended capital budget towards those new schools. My concern, again, is this will lead to further delay, and it will not lead to new schools being built for the foreseeable future. I don't know if we're entertaining amendments to that proposal. If so, I would move to amend the plan to include the recommendations of the staff and by the Department of Planning, with the exception that we reiterate or iterate our support for New Towson and Delaney.
Again, the plan that was put forth by the county is to have a study done on Towson and a new school built in Delaney. And I think a study is needed for both. I just, again, I go back to the argument that I was making originally that Delaney is the 6th school on the list for renovation. And we're moving it ahead of Sparrows Point and other schools. And we have an equality problem in the county. And this would just add to that. I just think that we need to study that and look at that before we go off and make that decision. These are not $1 and $2 million decisions. They're $190 million decisions that, you know, if we do these 2 schools and we really needed a Sparrows Point school is the most overcrowded school in the county based on and has the worst facility, that money's not going to be there for them. So I would love to build every school. I'm a banker, and that would cause a lot of economic development. So I would like for my contractors that we build schools everywhere. It's just not feasible. So, you know, I stand that we need to study this and see what the right school is. And if it's to build new schools, then I will fully 100% support it. But if it comes back that we should renovate them, then I think we need to go with what experts tell us to do. So.
Well, I guess, Todd, my concern that I have is that in 2 years ago now, I believe it was either 2018 or 2019, Sage Policy Group did a study, and their study came back saying there should be a new Towson. My passes a study and says there's no need for a new Towson. There's been many, many studies done over the last several years and going back decades at this point that have given, you've gotten different perspectives from each of them. And so there's not clearly a definitive answer that's going to come from the experts on this. I think that it is something, however, where clearly the data does show that Towson is massively overcrowded and hasn't had anything done to it in over a generation. As Paul Hartman mentioned, his son was there the last time it was renovated, and he's in his 40s now. My concern, again, is to have this unique opportunity that the state's allocated a record amount in investment for new school construction. And by pushing this off, because we have no idea whether a study is going to be done a year from now, 2 years from now, or at all, we're recommending it, but there's no guarantee that the funds will be there. And if we continue to see revenue shortfalls at the county level with the aftermath of COVID, my concern is this is just simply not going to happen, and we're missing a golden opportunity to strike while the iron's hot.
Well, my argument would be is we're putting the money's already in the budget to do it, so all we're doing is recommending that we go forward with the study. And I believe we even wrote into the thing that we wanted to be, done as quick as possible to do that. So, and we're going to get a study back in a few months that says that we're going to need to spend, X more millions of dollars on elementary and middle school too. Could be more than actually what we're going to spend on 2 high schools. So I just think we need to study that and have, I'm in District 1. In our school, we have 2 schools that are ahead of Delaney on that list that need improvements. They're categorized as needing improvements more than Delaney does. So again, I'd love to build every school. That's not realistic. And I think we need to study that. I just think it needs to be studied. And if the difference to build a new school is $190 million and to renovate $100 million, and we can give them the same experience like what we're doing in Lansdowne, which is in my district, we're renovating, we're not giving them a new school. I think that's prudent.
Okay, well, right, if anybody has any questions that they'd like to say right now, anything they'd like to add?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure there was a second for Mr. Caligari's motion.
No, there
was not.
I'll second it.
Nancy,
Okay, we'll take a roll call.
Nancy,
Yes.
say something. Each person on the planning board represents an important area of the county and represent the taxpayers there.
and they are in eyes and ears of both the county councilman and the county executive. I feel too often the opinions are ignored by the county the people in charge of the budget process. I think of a couple of years ago, several years ago, there was important in Dundalk area, Dundalk Community College. The person in that area thought there was an item that was much more important than what the so-called experts were saying, and they listened to him, and they moved the item up so it was done. I feel too often our opinions are ignored. And I only think back about my request for additional gym space at Hereford, and the response was, well, you got air conditioning last year. Well, for those of you who went through school without air conditioning, I think that's a little laughable, in that it's only needed a few weeks out of the year at the end of the year. To put that ahead of something is used and needed by the whole community is something I think that too often our views are ignored, as if the bureaucrat's opinion is more important than you who are representing the citizens that live in that area. So I would go along with the other comments that have been made. I just think too often they are ignoring our advice and opinions.
Nancy, also, since we brought this up about the second gym in Hertford, I do have an issue with that, because if we're going to be in approval for a gym in Hereford and not look at the school in Delaney, I mean, I just can't see the need for that. And that's where I have a issue with the fact that we can put money there and not put it in the school and ask for a study. So I'm just concerned that why can't we ask for a study for the second gym, as we are for Delaney? I mean, for
that was the motion that was made, was a study for the gym, not a new gym. It was a study for the gym. That's what got approved, a study for the gym.
But there's still $2 million that we're spending.
No, that's if we build a gym, not for a study. And we're not spending $2 million on a study.
But, okay, well then if we already have a gym, then why do we need to do a study for another gym?
Because you're correcting a mistake that was made when they did the overhaul of the Hereford originally. They did not account for the needs of a senior high versus a junior senior high. And it was at that time, they did an overhaul for 50 million as opposed to 100 million. And we're talking about less than $2 million as opposed to some other projects, 150 plus million.
Well, then if that be the case, then the thing going on with the school would be a valid concern as well.
I mean, I think it is a valid concern, and I think we need to study it. So we're not asking to not do the school. We're just asking to study, should it be a renovation or a new school?
Madam Chairman, Chairwoman.
Yes, Mr. Perlow.
I'm sitting here listening to everybody, and I see everybody concerned about their particular area of the county. I think in this COVID world that we've just lived the last year in, that we're just getting our vaccines, that we probably will live another year not knowing what county, state, federal, capital budgets, what money is going to be available. I think that to try to push things ahead because it sounds like the right thing to do for Delaney or Lansdowne or Hereford or East Side or West Side, is just wrong. I just think that we have no idea what the budget pictures are going to look like. We're just starting to get some numbers. You're starting to see a very small amount of recovery. A lot of money that was given to us by the feds last winter, last spring, that our county executive has used to try to survive this year. I just have a problem that we don't know how much is really available to spend. I saw an article yesterday that our bond rating was kept at a AAA bond rating. That is as extremely important. Some people are somewhat new to our board, haven't lived through these cycles of recessions and growth periods. And I'm just concerned that everybody wants to push things ahead right now. I think that study periods, I understand, do take time, but it gives us time to also be sure that we can afford it. I graduated 50 years ago from Pikesville High, and Pikesville High was majorly renovated 5 years ago, and it's an unbelievable facility that our reunion committee met there to see whether we wanted to have it. So just to spend money on new things just because it's the best way to go isn't always the best way to go. And I think we really have to consider, it's nice to say that the county doesn't listen to us. I think they do. I think that sometimes, though, the councilmen are the people that make the decision. We know that. But I think that, yes, we're given the ability of approving this capital budget, but I think that you just can't spend money if you're not sure that we're going to have it. And I think that comes with patience. I think it comes with sometimes spending an extra amount of time doing that review to be sure that we're not spending money that we don't have. So I'm sorry, but how I feel at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Perlow. Are there any more comments at this time? If not, Mr. Halipka made a motion. Can everybody mute because there's background noise? Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Caligari's motion is on the tape, is on the floor.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Caligari made a motion. What is your motion, Mr. Caligari?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the Zoom back and forth here. So my motion was to amend the recommendations as approved by the Capital Improvement Subcommittee with the modification that the funding be allocated for a new Towson and Delaney High School, not for a study.
Is there a second?
I second it already.
Okay. I'm going to take a vote. Mr. Schweitzer?
Nay.
Ms. Pinero?
Nay.
Mr. Halipka?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfson?
Nay.
Mr. McGinnis?
Nay.
Mr. Heckman?
Nay.
Mr. Heinel, I don't think he's with us. Mr. Perlow? Mr. Perlow?
I'm sorry, nay.
Mr. Warren?
Nay.
Mr. Hoftist? Don't get your name right, I promise. What is it? Fotis?
Nay.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Madam Chair, I did not call me Hartman.
Hartman, yeah, I thought I had you. You seconded it.
Right, but I vote aye.
Yeah, but when you seconded it, that was an aye.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, that's 9 to 1, 2, 3. The motion fails. So let's go back to our original motion that Mr. Halipka made. Is there a second for Mr. Halipka's motion?
Second.
Okay.
Nancy.
Let's do a roll call.
Ms. Hafford.
Yes.
Would you mind reading the motion once more?
Mr. Halipka, can you read the motion? And Katie, your background noise is really bad.
Sure. Be it moved that the Baltimore County Planning Board the capital agreement cover letter.
Scott, we couldn't hear you at all.
All right, I'm gonna read it. Everybody please mute. I'm gonna read it. Be it moved that the Baltimore County Planning Board approves the 2022 capital budget and capital program for 2023-2027, an accompanying cover letter as recommended by the Committee on the Capital Budget Program for a transmittal to the Director of Budget and Finance. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
I had seconded that, but it should have the not just the budget, but with our amendments to the budget. So
It does have our amendments, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the cover letter.
Yes, that's the cover letter.
okay, then you have my second.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to take a roll call. Mr. Schweitzer,
Yay.
Ms. Panero,
Yay.
Mr. Hartman,
Yay, aye.
Mr. Halipka,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Hey,
I'm sorry, what?
nay.
Okay. Mrs. Wolfson. Mrs. Wolfson. Mr. McGinnis,
Aye.
Mr. Heckman,
Aye.
Mr. Hiles, Mr. Perlow,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Caligari,
Nay.
Mr. Fotis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay. All righty then. Where am I? Thank you all. I appreciate, I know your hearts are all in this and you're very passionate about what you do for Baltimore County. Mr. Davis will now report on the February 11th, 2021 meeting of the Landmark Preservation Commission. Mr. Davis, this is your last report on the Landmark Preservation.
All right, I'll make it a good one, Madam Chair.
There you go.
So at the February 11th, 2021 meeting of the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the LPC voted to issue 6 certificates of appropriateness at the following properties. They include the O'Hara property located at 1603 South Rolling Road in Relay, the Shapiro property located at 5 Wall Avenue in Glendon, the Bubnash property located at 14th Chatsworth Avenue in Glendon, the Monday property located at 1554 South Rolling Road in Relay, the Provencher property located at 117 Central Avenue in Glendon, and the Jadema Moore property located at 1020 Winter Road in Sudford Park. And those are the extent of the LPC report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. And now fill us in on legislation recently passed by the County Council after our last meeting.
Sure, Madam Chair, there are several items that we'll review, starting with Bill 5-21, which is a Port Infrastructure Development Program Bill. And this is for the U.S. Department of Transportation, which has made an award of federal funds available to the Baltimore County Department of Economic and Workforce Development to be used to fund port upgrades as part of the Sparrows Point Bulk Expansion Rail Modernization and Berth Rehabilitation Mid-Atlantic Multimodal Transportation Project, which the county intends to re-grant for Trade Point Atlantic. Bill 6-21 is a zone regulations bill, and it's for the purposes of permitting a car wash under certain circumstances in the business local BL zone. Bill 7-21 is a bill for the zoning regulations regarding signage in the MH zone, and it's for the permitting of a waiver or a modification of any applicable signs regulations by approval of a pattern book or a modification to an existing pattern book in the manufacturing heavy zone, MH zone, under certain circumstances. Bill 8-21 is also a bill for the zoning regulations to uses permitted in the community business zone or the CB zone. and is for the purposes of defining the term cleaning and restoration business in certain zoning regulations, permitting a cleaning and restoration business under certain circumstances in the CB zone. Bill 9-21 is an emergency rental assistance program bill, and this bill covers the U.S. Department of Treasury, which has made an award of federal funds available to the Baltimore County Department of Planning to assist households impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic to provide housing-related financial assistance and housing stability services to eligible households in accordance with the guidelines and procedures established by the Treasury Department. Resolution 4-21 is an accept donation of parcel of land for the White Marsh Volunteer Fire Department Station. And it's a resolution to authorize Baltimore County to accept a donation of a parcel of land containing a total area of 1.07 acres, more or less, from the White Marsh Volunteer Fire Company. The county intends to use the donated parcel for floodplain purposes. Resolution 8-21 is an approval of applications and a raking of agricultural easements. And this is an annual resolution to approve certain applications for the sale of an agricultural easements on agricultural properties that meet the county criteria for application in accordance with the Land Preservation Article, Section 24-3 of the Baltimore County Code of Ordinances. Resolution 9-21 is a bill for the Baltimore Ravens Northwest Regional Park, and it's to authorize the county to accept a donation of $500,000 from the Baltimore Ravens. The donated fund will be utilized towards the reconstruction of a fitness-themed and focused destination playground at the Northwest Regional Park in Council District 4. Resolution 10-21 is an approval of the continuation of a state of emergency of the Executive Order number 2020-002, and this is a continuation of the county's executive order related to the COVID-19 pandemic issued on March 13, 2020, and will continue until the county executive declares at the end of the state of emergency or March 6, 2021, whichever comes first. Resolution 16-21 is the amendment to the 10-year solid waste management plan, and it's a resolution to adopt the office building recycling amendment to the Baltimore County Solid Waste Management Plan. And finally, Resolution 17-21 is the establishment of the Rolling Road Windsor Mill Commercial Revitalization District. This district has been identified as an area surrounding the intersection of Rolling Road and Windsor Mill Road, continuing southeast on Windsor Mill Road to the intersection of Windsor Mill Road and Pine Avenue, and continue to the west of Pine Avenue to the north of Windsor Mill Road. And that's the extent of the legislation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Well, that concludes our agenda for tonight. And I thank you all for your service. I mean, you've spent a lot of time doing this capital improvement plan, and I know we all care about Baltimore County and what's best for our friends and our families and our businesses. So at this time, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, have a great evening, everyone.
And I want to thank Mr. Davis for his service. From my point of view, these meetings were run very smoothly as far as getting materials way ahead of time and links to WebEx and all of that. And I wish you the best in your next step.
Definitely during this challenging time, you did an amazing job. I concur. So,
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So now you're not allowed to leave.
Hostage indeed.
I make a motion to lock him in chains in the county building. Thank you.
Let's not accept his resignation. In favor, say aye. All right, stay safe, everyone.
You too. Thank you.